Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to an episode of Pep Talks in the Morning. My name is Lisa, and me is Michelle Davis, our Deputy Party Organizer. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Felicia. Good morning, Terence.
So we joined by Antur, who is our Deputy Political Leader, one of our two Deputy Political Leaders. And it is 8 a.m. on, 8:02 a.m. on Monday, the 30th of March. And today is actually Baptist holiday. Not that many people in Trinidad and Tobago will
Might not get
out
no volume.
this day
No volume.
because something bigger is happening at the moment now, which is this entire COVID 19 pandemic, and also the first day of our new isolation slash quarantine. And for many people, well, you notice that the setting is different by both and where Davis is because we are doing this program from home. Thanks to Satish Ramsaran and the PEP Media team, we are now able to broadcast to you, to the rest of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world right from home, thanks to technology as well, which allows us to do the right thing by quarantining ourselves, but still getting the message out to you. So, Michelle, morning, thing on in Cedras.
We are in self quarantine. We're taking it in stride. I mean, just urging the population basically to adhere to this self isolation, and stay home. Only go out when it's absolutely necessary because we are facing a critical crisis are in our country right now, and we just need to take heed of the steps that are being told to us.
Last night, yesterday, we had an interview with Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith. Philip would have interviewed him. He was able to clarify and clear up a lot of the misconception pertains to this entire COVID 19 lockdown that we're supposed to be on today. I think there was a lot of miscommunication and mixed messages with regards to what exactly is happening today. Last night, I told my mom like I make it to the grocery this weekend. I hate panic buying. I hate people stuck on. So I said I'll wait until the drama dies down, and seeing as supermarkets are listed as an essential service, I would go to the grocery sometime during the week. And I mentioned that to her last night, and she said, "You're leaving home? You can leave home?" I said, "Mommy, you need to tune in more to the pep and the message that we send because I think it was very important. It was critical for all of the people who would have watched that video yesterday to understand exactly what you can and can't do, versus what you should and should not do. And I think the commissioner was very clear and very direct in explaining what is expected of us as citizens. The basic idea is to just protect yourselves, protect other people. I'm vibrant. Should I get the virus and pass it on to someone? No, that's when it really becomes, an issue, and everybody who I would come into contact with. So I really have to thank Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith and Philip Edward Alexander for putting that information out into the public space yesterday. I think the nation we needed to really understand where the lines were and where we should, pay the most attention in terms of quarantining ourselves. Um, I'm not sure if Anthony is logged on yet. I am waiting for a message from Master Control. Do have let's jump into the inclusive of speaking to a farmer a little later down in the program. There's also a Talk Your Talk segment where we will encourage you to call in, give us your questions, tell us how to you what is the quarantine like in your part of the world, your part of the universe. But before we get into the call-in segments, oh, and I think we have Anthony Defoe joining us here. Is this Anthony? Anthony, good morning.
Hearing you.
Anthony, are you on? He's speaking. I'm seeing his lips moving, but I'm not hearing him. So I'm assuming that he has no audio in his part of the world. So I will give Master Control and Anthony a moment to shout. But you and I could probably dive into the conversation. That list that we made yesterday on things that we could have discussed. And I want to go off let's see COVID. Um, what is COVID looking like today in Trinidad? So I heard you reading some statistics earlier, not just Trinidad and Tobago, but the globe. What are we looking like in terms of the numbers? Are we flattening the curve? Are we on the increase? Are we decreasing? What's happening?
Well, globally, we're looking at almost 250,000 cases of COVID, 35,000 deaths globally. And in Trinidad, the cases they are rising, as we can see. We went up over the weekend, I think 12, from 66 to 78 in just a matter of 2 days. So we are not looking at Trinidad at a curve yet. I think the Prime Minister indicated we are expected to go higher actually in the next week. So it should be of grave concern to all of us as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, especially to, heed what is being told to us in terms of the direction. I agree with you yesterday. The video with Philip and the commissioner was extremely informative in terms of letting the public know what exactly within the law the police can do, because a lot of people were of the misconception that we were on lockdown, but it still doesn't mean that we all just basically it's a free for all, even though we are not in technically under a state of emergency. So the numbers are continually rising. They are not decreasing worldwide, which should be of extreme concern to all of us, because one thing this has taught us is that this is now a global epidemic, global situation that we're all facing, regardless of what country we're in. We're all facing the exact same situation.
No, I actually was wondering, and for based on especially what happened within the past 2 weeks, where we had 20,000 people coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, based on the carnival incident, based on the first death that we had last week by that elderly gentleman who came in sometime on the 5th of February, I believe it was, or end of January. I can't remember the exact date. I just know it was before Carnival. Based on those statistics, I'm wondering if the numbers that we have and that we're seeing right now, actually, no, based on those statistics, what it is telling us is not that the transmission has been happening within the past 2 weeks, but it's more indicative of the fact that the virus would have been here before, and the numbers that we're seeing right now is what is reflective of what would have taken place weeks prior. Do you get that feeling?
Yes, I do. And I mean, what is the scary part is that the incubation period, basically, I think medical doctors were indicating 14 days. And now we're looking at possibly up to 42 days, which would be coincide with the arrival of the first case. He came in February 5th and basically didn't show symptoms, I think, till March 13th. So basically, that's about 4 or 5 weeks, give or take. So clearly, it was here before, and we weren't. The general public probably was not aware of it. But it goes back to what we were indicating. The government knew that this was a dangerous virus from the 31st when it was declared.
I want to welcome Anthony into the conversation. Now, I think, Anthony, you have audio. Anthony, you're here?
Yeah, you guys are hearing me?
Yes.
Hearing you loud. Welcome, Anthony. morning to Trinidad and
All right.
Tobago.
Morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Morning, Michelle, Felicia, Satish, and all Will. Um, what you guys are talking about is a very, very serious matter that we're dealing with here. And I mean, yes, right now we have a quarantine or limited modes, which is definitely a plus. It should slowing down the transmission, at least from here on. But again, the main concern is the length of time that it has taken for us to get to this point. Because we have to now assume that there's a large number of locals on the ground here in Trinidad and Tobago that can possibly be infected. We truly have no idea what that number is. Us having to have a proper quarantine period for it to have the gestation, whether it be the 14 to 42, 44 days. The government needs to take these things effective in the sense where at least we talk about us having carnival, and we were the ones in the PEP calling for the carnival to be either cancelled or put back to a later date or what the case might be. People were laughing at us. People were saying that we were crazy for saying that we were overreacting. But here we are having to do what we should have done months ago. And like you said, the government of the day knew that this was a very dangerous situation. The disease, this virus, is very real and can put the country in a state of chaos. But yet they ignored that and thought to themselves it was more important for Carnival to be hosted versus, because when you think about it, you're making $300,000-400,000 or 400 million dollars during the carnival period. Yes, okay, all well and good. But how much money are we having to go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund right now to try to pacify this coronavirus that we are dealing with right now? How much
And
sense and
Anthony,
how much proactivity really that was?
I wanna interject here just because you brought up two very important points, two things that we want to discuss today actually. And there's been, especially in the public space in the past 2 weeks, a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth. Some people are in denial, some people are finally accepting, some have been accepting the fact that this virus may have been around here before or even at the point of carnival. What Trinbagonians need to understand is that Trinidad, we're not, the Progressive Women Party is not fighting to say, yes, it was here from Carnival or before Carnival. So there you have it, and the government is wrong and the PEP is right. It's not about us being right versus wrong. It's not about who put the information out first versus who was slow to act. It's actually about looking at what and how our response was for the future, and looking at how our response, how did we approach our response with in light of mitigating the spread of the disease. Because if we're in denial that it was here from Carnival, then we're denying the fact that thousands of people could have possibly had that virus and infected other people. So there's that point, and then there's the point that you raised that this information and this was declared a pandemic, not a pandemic, but it was declared a contagious disease, I believe, by our president, Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, since January. And that for me is concerning when you look at the fact that our actual COVID rollout plan only took place 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. It shows the
Beautiful point.
non-preparedness.
And again, failure of the leadership that we have across board. Across board. That is that we're in. Because dragging our feet and we are putting the nation at a greater risk. And what are we constantly saying? Because there is a gross level of incompetence taking place from our leaders, and we still lead to this. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I'm wanting to toot our horn as the progressive party. Have information out there is really not about who put it first or who passed, but the issue is that have a leadership that is not listening to the population, that is not listening to the citizens, that are not listening to people who have critical information, presenting it into the public space, and they are not scrutinizing anything or any questions whatsoever. The interaction between the state and the people on the ground is not, in fact, it's almost as if the people are actually being ignored, and that's not making any type of sense when these people who are public servants, they get to serve people and seek of the people. End of story. And as I say, they are seeking the interest of the people because they are still being reactive towards things taking place. And we are the ones, as the people on the ground, still holding the shitty end of the stick. Nothing that is truly making sense. And the point is that people talking about let us come together and let us look at country first versus party or politics. All well and good, but we are putting things into the public, and people are still wanting to step aside and draw lines in the sand. Where are we, or when are we as a people truly going to simply come together and put aside the politics and truly the interests of the nation? Because we are in a position right now, aside from the health risk that we are faced with right now, we have a major economic downfall that is placed here for Trinidad and Tobagonians. What is being done to address this? We are importing way too much in order for the population in itself to survive, to simply live day to day. Most of the products that we consume is coming from outside of the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, and a primary portion of that is our food that we have to eat. And no one is seeking that level of security for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Again, it's another, I am just seeing it happen where we are waiting to be reactive for the nation not to have any food in the groceries, and we are in a position where the country is almost to rise because we can't feed our family before government chooses to make any major initiative towards anything, and then we want to look for handouts, we want to look for help from IMF or other countries, or the case might be. We are not in that position right now today. This is a global thing that we are dealing with, and no one is seeing what is happening. And the people who are seeing is still choosing to stay quiet. I really don't know what to say, because we are continuously having people that is calling themselves leaders that is continuously failing the people, and the people are still straight length and breadth holding the shitty end of the stick.
But
It is not right.
I'm looking at. Go ahead, Michelle.
when have we been, proactive in any type of governance, in any type of situation? This is just the continuance of reactive government. People are indicating that the government is doing a great job when really we are basically mimicking the entire world right now. We are waiting
Correct.
on the other global updates, and we are basically just coming online and indicating and repeating the same thing. The world leaders have basically all the same speeches right now. They're all giving the same. We are not doing something that is unique to this pandemic. We are just in line with what is expected. But it goes to show that the citizens of this country are not used to good governance. So we think this speech and these updates and these every day are something that, wow, we deserve this. Wow, we got this, because we're not used to it. This is the norm of what is happening in the entire world right now. So this is not unusual, and we should not applaud what we deserve as citizens. We deserve to be updated. We deserve to hear the correct information. And as Felicia indicated, we just started getting in tune 2 weeks ago when our first case came here. What happened from January 31st to March 13th?
That's a good question. And looking at there was an article that I sent to you guys to read, and I'm going to post it at the end of this video because I think everybody should read this article. It speaks about what a pandemic world is going to look like. And the article basically points out that not many people, because we're in the middle, slap dab in the middle of the crisis, not many people are aware or even thinking as far ahead as what this is going to look like when this pandemic passes. And it's going to change, just like the world changed after World War One, just like it changed after World War Two, just like it changed after the Spanish influenza. A major crisis like this always brings change. And we have lived in a very well, I don't want to say interdependent, because we have nations operating, you can say, by themselves. We have the United States, which the article is very clear and not mincing words when they say has operated as if it depended and needed no one. We have China, who sees itself as the world. China actually before they could have actually catch them to the world. And the way we operate has been very disconnected. But the article is pointing out the fact that this pandemic is going to change how we collaborate as an entire globe. Because this needed to be, and people are looking at it now, the experts, the epidemiologists. How do you pronounce that word? Oh my God. The say it for me, because I totally just lost the pronunciation for that. They are all saying that we needed to address this as a unit, as the entire globe together, because travel is one thing that connects us, and travel is actually the number one way that you can spread the disease. And you're looking at people who are going, especially before we paid attention to how it was spreading. You're looking at people who would have traveled all over the globe. Someone said that, I believe it was Sean Sunirine, my deputy chairman, he said that for Carnival, our major visitors come from New York. And when you look at the United States right now, the major outbreak is happening in New York. So looking at the way we deal and operate as countries working with each other, we should have, as a globe, paid closer attention to this. And I don't want to just put it on Trinidad and Tobago, because I believe that as a worldwide, we didn't look at, I don't think that we this serious. I think many people were waiting for the World Health Organization to declare a pandemic. On Carnival Monday, the World Health Organization had not yet decided that it was a pandemic. And less than 2 weeks later, it came out, and then everything blew up as one. But looking at the way, I would say, we were slow to react is very concerning. And in a post-pandemic world, it is going to change the way we do things, but it is also going to change the way we operate in terms of our politics, because many countries, people are putting pressure on their governments, putting on them, asking questions that we here are afraid to ask, which is why we're so afraid, or not so afraid, but why were you so sweet right now? He's getting a lot of pressure from people who are looking at the fact that in the beginning he almost pretended that it did not exist. And this is his worst year ever. Donald Trump, if for anybody who knows, as much as he was a disliked man, and as much as people hate him and don't like him, but he has been experiencing for the past 3 years a successful term in office. And then this virus came and it absolutely changed, a complete 180. Things are now hanging in the balance, just like Trinidad and Tobago. This is an election year for the United States. And this virus is going to determine most likely the outcome of those the election results. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we also need to be putting that pressure. People need to understand that we can't just the government is trying its best. We need to ask those questions that Misha brought up. On January 31st, we declared this a dangerous disease. What happened between that time and now? And these things should impact our decision to vote, because when you look to your government, aren't you looking for someone who is capable of leadership, who's capable of making tough decisions. A tough decision would have been to cancel Carnival. It wasn't an easy decision, but it would have been a tough decision that was necessary for securing the well-being of the nation. Coming on television now and saying that we are fighting a war. When you fight in a war, you go into a war prepared. You don't get the news of the war a month and a half and then decide to move to action a month and a half later. That's not how you approach a war. So when I hear the Prime Minister say we are in war, I'm wondering, okay, so then why were we so slow to react? Over to you guys. I talk a lot here.
Well, Michelle, go ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, it's exactly, and that article, Felicia, was extremely enlightening and extremely just in terms of how prepared are governments to handle this. And this is, if this hasn't shown the world what your governments are dealing. I mean, in Trinidad, we have clearly seen we are not prepared for crisis such as this, and it shows our reactive behavior. It shows the lack of preparation and foresight. We continue to be a lack progression in this country. I mean, we look right now, the world is turning to Cuba, for example, in terms of medicine. And here we are having a relationship with, did you notice, we have not had any Cuban doctors come to Trinidad yet, but Jamaica has. They're in Italy, they're in China. But yet we had a Venezuelan vice president visit us a few days ago. So it has to show the public, what is the direction of this government? Where are we going as a country? And citizens have to start asking themselves relevant questions. What is the plan? And we keep saying that at the Progressive Empowerment Party. What are the plans? What are the solutions? And this has clearly showed we continue to manage from a very traditional management style and governance.
Michelle, and you brought up points there about the visit from the Venezuelan prime minister, vice president, sorry, and it was very concerning to me because we're in the height of a crisis, we're in the height of a war, and you didn't bring in an epidemiologist, you didn't bring in a subject matter expert in economics like Marla Dukaran. And for those who have not yet listened to that 7-minute podcast from Marla Dukaran, please listen to it. I will also post the link to that as well as the link to the post-pandemic world that we would be facing after this crisis. We didn't bring in experts in the field of diversification and food and agriculture, but we brought in the venom. I was confused about that move. We didn't bring in our citizens who have been quarantined in places like Suriname and Barbados. What happened to those people? Why the focus on this person? And some people highly linked to the president of Venezuela, who is now considered a narco-terrorist by the United States. We are making some very crazy and questionable moves in the middle of this, and the things that you would expect, the people that you would expect us to be intact with, we don't seem to be making that with them.
Very, very true. Very, very, very true. What you've said there, that is of great concern because no one of any specialty field within the dynamics of where we are right now, such as someone the medical field or someone within the economical field. You're hosting again a Venezuelan vice president and not even having a clear agenda being placed into the public, at least for us to know what this meeting directly was about, what we were planning to try to accomplish from this. And another great point is the fact of the Cuban doctors going in just about everywhere that has had effect with this virus, and we still have no doctors here. A point that Neil had brought up a little earlier, us not being prepared. Trinidad is not prepared for the floods that's about to come here in a few months. Far less for Trinidad and Tobago to be prepared for a break of such a magnitude where this virus is concerned. I would go right back to the fact of my father having a stroke in recent time, a couple of weeks ago, and going into the hospital and told to me that there aren't any beds available for anyone in the hospitals right now, east, west, north, and south. So if we do have a major breakout in Trinidad and Tobago, where are we housing? Are we going to allow them to stay in their homes? Are we sending doctors and nurses to people's homes, or are we creating a proper facility? I mean, we've had discussion of their quarantine area that's up in, I think it's Balandra or Toko Grand Riviere. And the people there are saying that there's no real quarantine. Basically, these people are moving around in a blocked off area, basically, and is not quarantined from each other. I mean, there's so much that is happening right now that is simply not making sense. And I am really, really disturbed. My heart breaking, and I am in major fear. I am in fear right now because I don't know what the outlook of the future truly is for Trinidad and Tobago. We continuously choose to always follow, not be leaders. Even when we're sitting down waiting for who? For the World Health Organization and what they say. We didn't have common sense to realize that we can be proactive enough to at least have a foresight for situations and environments and have a ready-made plan to deal with that on a national level for Trinidad and Tobago. We have to insist that we have to wait on what the Americas say or what England say, the Europeans or the United Nations, before we are able to safeguard and seek the interest and security of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in every instance, whether it be due to a natural disaster, whether it be due to disease, as what we're faced with right now, whether we're faced with an economic collapse, whether we are faced with whatever under the sun. We can be proactive enough in knowing exactly what are the different scenarios we can be faced as or face a nation, and put systems in place, shelf it, have training throughout the year, throughout months, pertaining towards different scenarios happening on the ground in Trinidad. So at least we have a clear idea and direction as to what to do and what the protocol is in moving forward and safeguarding the citizenry. But no, I talking madness. I's a madman. The Progressive Party is mad people, right? Because what we're talking is them making sense. They're making sense. We have to insist that we have to be reactive and not proactive.
Making sense, because when you look at all of the policies that the government is implementing right now, and I saw Andulal, who's a senior member of the Progressive Empowerment Party, say that last night, one thing this COVID-19 make happen is that policies work because we're seeing the government implement all. And it's so funny because at the beginning and even during our entire camp, I would say, not camp, but in the lifespan of the Progressive Empowerment Party, we've been saying to the government, steal the ideas, do it for the betterment of the people, do it so that they can benefit, do it so that the country can benefit, so that I'm listening to the Minister of Agriculture talk about we need to look at consumption plans in terms of food security. And I'm like, what? Did he say what? He said what? And I'm blown away because we have been seeing this for the longest while. Take our ideas, look at developing agriculture. When I'm looking at this article that says we are not looking at food production and security at this time, I'm further blown away because isn't now the time that we should be focusing on this? The Chinese say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. now, today that we are facing a globe where still importing things, wheat, rice, cooking oil, peas, beans, meat, hatching eggs, milk, and other commodities. I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking there's none of these things that we can grow or rear right here in Trinidad and Tobago.
And the average
And
citizen
this we
just does not
have
realize
never
that.
found how to secure food for our nation. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, the average citizen just does not realize the insurmountable amount of 80% of our items in Trinidad or more are imported. Our importation bill is in the billions. And right now we are so vulnerable. Should this pandemic continue to grow, it will impact production, it will impact shipping, it will impact prices, it will impact availability of goods and services. And we need to see how vulnerable we are right now as a country. And as you said, it is really it's almost comical that we are seeing that they are implementing PEP's policies. I think the judicial system goes online today. And we have been saying that for the longest in terms of saving the country millions of dollars of transportation for citizens. Why don't we go online? Why don't we have services available online for the citizens? But I continuously mention and will continuously mention, it just shows that we are deliberately managed by deliberate incompetency because we know better, but we just fail to implement it. There's no way we could know better and see the world doing better, see other countries flourishing with PEP policies, with first world adaptation, but yet we continue to manage as though we're in the 60s, as though, the Queen never left. We deliberately do it because it intentionally keeps the citizens of this country down. It intentionally keeps them at a very low poverty, both from a mental standpoint and from a financial standpoint. And I've mentioned that when you have knowledge and when you have that outside look of what the world does, you will be a more in tuned voter. And that's what we don't have in Trinidad. Right now, the focus is, oh, how much money we getting? With these payouts, Felicia, we spoke about what they're going to give for the next 3 months. That's what people are focusing on instead of the long term governance of this country.
Yes, into that topic that we had outlined, which is the 1.2 billion withdrawal from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And it was also a very heavily discussed topic last week for those who are not aware of what that means for us. Our Heritage and Stabilization has under 6 million US dollars, a operating budget that, well, not operating budget, but a savings that when you look at countries like Norway and Finland, it's literally joking. It's like kitty money. They probably earn that in interest per year. And this is what we have as our backup savings as entire nation, and that's 6 billion US dollars, which is just roughly a little over half our budget to manage the country for half of a year. And that is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. And when you look at the how the fund is made up, Heritage, which is supposed to, be a investment fund in terms of looking at posterity, looking at ways of securing the well-being of all the citizens of the citizens in the future as well, because they are beneficiaries of the country. And then the stabilization part, which is really used to fund financial and fiscal deficits for, well, when we have budget years where we may come in under than what we would have projected, such as like a year like this where we pinned oil at $60 a barrel and it's now $20 a barrel. stabilization fund is usually meant to stabilize the economy in terms of that. And it's not even all. You don't take all to fund the fiscal deficit. You take a percentage of that, and that's just to stabilize. No, we don't have things rising and falling, rising and falling. But in a case like the COVID pandemic, and a lot of people are saying, yes, now is the time. This is where you dip into your savings. I'm looking at an oil-rich country like Trinidad and Tobago, a country that had so much money. We had enough money. I was telling Sean Sooner, my deputy chairman, this yesterday. We had enough money, and this is actually what Norway is doing. Norway is doing. We had enough money to tell citizens, you know what? This next 3 months, you all take a vacation. We will pay your wages, we will pay your bills, or we will waive your bills for the next 3 months. Take these 3 months and spend it at home with your families. Relax. You're working all your life. We are facing a global pandemic. Things are tough. We want you to stay home, relax, enjoy yourself. We will cover you. The only stipulation is you can't go outside. And Norway is doing something similar to that. And Trinidad and Tobago, we actually had the kind of money to do something like that. And looking at us not even being 3 weeks into this pandemic, already talking about having to withdraw money from our already poor looking stabilization and heritage and stabilization fund. It's concerning. We're doing well for this, we weren't doing well financially. Where as much as COVID is the main topic, what a lot of people are failing to realize is we are still in the middle of a oil price war between Russia and Syria. The price of oil has dropped significantly. And post-COVID, we're looking at, not post-COVID, but again, before COVID-19, we had a country already mismanaged in terms of our global debt, 800 million loans that we would have taken past 4 years. We weren't looking well financially. So we're now at a place where going into what is supposed to be our nest egg, our backup fund, because like Marla Dukaran would have pointed out, there are other ways right now to fund the COVID-19 response. And in addition to funding it, we should have been in a place where we could have said, how many to be able to deal with a pandemic like this without having to go back up. Because everybody has savings. We all have savings. And then we have a savings that you don't touch. And the fact that we have to go to these savings that we don't touch as the first funds is very worrisome for me as a citizen when I look at what this fund is actually meant to do. Michelle, Tony, over to you guys.
Well, I absolutely agree. Again, and it is a shame, an absolute shame for us to be able to say that our stabilization fund is only $6 billion US. Absolute shame for a country that has had all the booms that we've had, that has had all the resources, where we say all the time that we have billions on the ground here in Trinidad and Tobago, and where money we can't show it, we cannot show it to the population. The level of money that's been spent since we've had independence in Trinidad and Tobago. And, we're looking at this pandemic and economic downturn that is taking now. And $6 billion US is not going to do anything for Trinidad and Tobago. That is putting a plaster on the sore. That is putting a plaster on the sore. What we have to seriously retool and change the entire way we do business, the way we interact, the way we manage on a whole. This is like the only silver lining in all of this, All of this is happening in Trinidad today. No. The only silver lining that we can look at towards this is the fact that we have an actual opportunity by force to retool, redesign, reboot Trinidad and Tobago across board. Across board in everything that we do, as far as food security, as far as health, as far as security, as far as education, as far as how we conduct business, as far as how we policy everything across the board. It is a perfect opportunity for Trinidad to shine on a global and international scale, creating a dynamic, creating a model that allows us to survive, to forge ourselves forward, because we are still in the position to be able to do that for Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of how much of a deficit, how much debt, and how much of everything that is negative facing us. With the correct leadership and the correct steps, the correct policies be in place, Trinidad and Tobago have a chance in still coming out on top where this entire thing is concerned. Whereas other countries are not as fortunate to be able to be in that position, but yet we still constantly have reactive leaders. We need to have proactive leaders. We need to have the government of the day to listen to its citizenry, to have a level of communication, a proper level of dialogue. We cannot constantly be forcing things down people's throat and expect everyone to say it is okay without having a level of understanding and dialogue as to what it is that we're trying to do, what are we trying to accomplish, what is the goals that we are aiming for right now. No one knows. No one knows, because we are keeping everyone in their homes right now. Businesses are closed. Tell me, your landlord still possibly coming to ask you for rent, whether it be for your residence or whether it be for your business. You still have to spend money in order to live, because you have to feed your family. What happens to the families right now that are not on any government programs, that are not signed up with any system in within government, whether it be on the local or central level of government? People who are living day to day, or week to week, or month to month, paycheck to paycheck. How are these people going to survive in Trinidad and Tobago in this environment right now? What type of protocols was put into place? They talk about with the grants, $150 extra. Really, how much is that going to do for any one given citizen? That is a day worth, if so much, of pacification thing whatsoever, if it's for food or what the case might be. Why have we not actually freeze the economy in a way that is controlled versus having to have it go into frozen, uncontrolled, out of control? Still waiting to hear what World Health to say, what the international economic standings is presenting into the public space, before we ourselves choose to be proactive in the sense in developing proper systems right now to deal with our health crisis that we are dealing with here in Trinidad, as well as the anticipation of our economic downturn across board. We have 1.4 million Trinidad and Tobago. It is not hard to manage that number, especially having the type of resources that we have here in Trinidad presently, even with oil at the price that it is. Why are we not able to create a proactive system in pacifying something? Instead, no, we want to have carnival. Yeah, the $300 million now. Yeah. But bringing 20,000 possible infected people to infect the citizens on the ground here in Trinidad and Tobago. That is how proactive we are. It makes no sense. None of it makes sense. And my question again this morning is, and Tobago, Felicia, Michelle, how are we taking these steps forward without having to hurt the population at large or the nation itself? How are we able to come together in having proper dialogue, in creating a proper agenda, moving Trinidad and Tobago forward to this point? Michelle?
And Anthony, it
Felicia?
should be a great concern to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that within 2 weeks of this pandemic, Trinidad is as has dipped into their savings, as Felicia said. It should be a really grave concern to the average citizen that we have taken this route already into a very measly savings. There are other options to pursue, but what is even more of concern is, as Anthony indicated, the average citizen, what they are facing. Um, the program or the compensation that has been outlined by the present government is basically catered to the most vulnerable and I mean understood in some ways. But what about the middle class? You and I know the average middle class person is taking a hit also. And as we see with other countries, the compensation is not from a class level. It is from a citizenry level, and all citizens are being compensated regardless of class. Because, I mean, for example, I'm a consultant, and I work directly with companies. And do I fall into that category of my job has been lost? No, it hasn't. But my income has been impacted, right? And we look at the compensation that has been given, and we see and we are hearing nightmare stories of gouging, price gouging, and we really
Yeah.
think 1500 is going to do something for the average citizen. You and I know on the average good day, 2, 3 bags, 4 bags will be $1,500, and that is the basics. But again, we are so used to brainwashing our citizens from the point of handouts. So we immediately put that into the public domain of 1500. Well, how was that calculated? Because the hours before that was announced, the Trump administration and the House of Representatives and Senate was discussing 1500 US per citizen. So where did we get that figure of 1500 TT? Because you and I know that is the equivalent of less than, give or take 250 US. It shows that we are a copycat governance. We just got a figure and we went with that. And that the day that those compensation came out, the HDC default for 3 months rent compensation, I was on Facebook that day, monitoring the situation, and basically, you saw all of this camaraderie and PNM is great. And I looked, it was so saddening to me because it shows that we are a nation that we go on handouts and just minimum handouts. We don't think we deserve better. We think, okay, this is 1500 is gonna last me. I'm getting my money. My HDC is being deferred and so forth. But again, we do not look long term, and we need to be extremely concerned where we are as a country. Once this $10 million or $1 billion is extracted from the HSF, we are heading down a road that of no return, basically.
IMF, IMF,
Very, very
IMF.
well said, Michelle. The funny thing about Anthony mentioning IMF, that actually has a global COVID pandemic fund that they are offering to all of the member states. And this is actually one of the economist Maladukaran suggested that we look at in terms of funding the expenditures that would be required to see through the period. Now, I'm not for borrowing, especially when the options available, which we do fortunately have. We have banks that have loan governments to cover this period of time, which is again me. You don't have to go to the IMF, which by the way, and I researched the fund is up to billion, 50 billion US to countries that need to fight the virus, especially vulnerable countries. I think Tehran was one of the first countries to actually approach the IMF for the first time in 6 decades for money to fight this. And when you look at the rates, it's interest free up to 4 years, and it is an option that I'm confused as to why we haven't considered. Again, not big on borrowing, but externally, particularly the IMF looking here in the country, it's worrisome that we didn't think, or one of our options wasn't to take money from within the economy first. Again, before touching the Heritage Stabilization Fund. And another concern of mine is what is this money from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund being used to fund? What are you using money for? Because this again, our savings is our fallback if anything is supposed to happen. And if anything like the Greenville crisis that showed us the amount of money that they had to spend, which was about 300 million or $100 million in giving out to residents who are affected by flooding, yet at the end of that, we never had a proper accounting of who got money. We never got proper accounting of who were the legitimate people to get money, because there was reports of money under illegitimate names, money going missing. So now, are we going to, is this a crisis that presents another opportunity for money to again be badly mismanaged in our economy? And it's even more concerning because, like I said, it's not money coming from regular operations. It's not money that's coming out from the budget. It is coming out from our Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And people need to understand the importance of this fund. They need to understand that your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren are supposed to be beneficiaries of this fund. And what are we leaving for them going forward? Yes, for life and survival and making sure that we come out of COVID with the least amount of deaths possible. But we also have to come out of this and still manage as a country and as an economy. And the hopes of that happening right now, particularly under this present administration, for me, are very low. And I say the hopes are low. My hopes are low because I have looked at the past 4 years and how they have managed situations like the Greenville and like other crises that we had, the flooding, etc. I am not confident that they would manage our Heritage and Stabilization Fund and the withdrawal that they are taking from this fund to the best interest of the country. I'm not confident is going to go exactly where they say it's going to go. And I'm not confident that the people who actually need help, like middle people, pointed out, the business, the sole business owners, the entrepreneurs, the people who work for themselves, the taxi drivers, I am not certain that they are going to benefit from this exorbitant result, which funding thing, but is that it is needed the most. I mean, come on, a $50 million hotel in Tobago, really? At this time, really?
Right. I mean, one of the compensation that is being distributed, I mean, this alone needs to make citizens think in this country. We are taking out of the HSF to pay tax refunds that are owed to the citizens. That is one of the, quite an allotment of the money is going towards that. Paying citizens money you already owe them, which shows the government has already been operating at a negative. And we are taking from the HSF and acting as though we're giving citizens money when you're not giving no one any money. You're giving citizens money that was already been owed to them. I have a tax refund outstanding from 2017. I still have not received it. I kind of wrote it off, but I will clearly await and see. You are taking money to operate the country. We were already operating at a $7 billion deficit. And then the price of oil dropped 75%. So that continued to heighten our deficit to over $15 billion already operating in the hole. And now we are taking from the savings to pay citizens what we already owe them. You are not doing us a favor. This is what is owed to us. this is what we earned and this is what we overpaid. And people are not seeing this. People are seeing this as a handout. And we need to start thinking as citizens in this country, what do we deserve? What is good governance? And we should not be proud of the fact that we are operating in almost $20 billion in the hole. And wow, we're getting tax refunds because we want to put the money back into the system.
Beautifully said, Michelle.
No, really well, Michelle. We're supposed to call or make a call to Riyad Mohammed, who is a subject matter expert in the field of agriculture. Riyad, and particularly regards to security topic that we were discussing earlier. I am going to call him now and bring him into the conversation. And you guys, Michelle, and we can together question him on what we think are the government's plans for food security, as well as what he thinks the government's plan for security during this pandemic should be time.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Riyad. Felicia here. I'm good. I'm joined by Michelle Davis, our deputy party organizer for our deputy political leader this morning, and you're live for Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world to hear you on Pep Talks in the morning. Good morning.
Great, good morning, world.
Riyad, we were talking food security a little while earlier on the program. We were talking the fact that this government seems to have no immediate put anything in place for food security in the midst of this pandemic. And as an expert in the area, I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Okay, usually food security is a fancy term that most governments the public's vote. So I think that term and call it food production and nutrition security.
Food production and nutrition security. Understood.
Yeah. With regards to the pandemic, it's not Trinidad alone experiencing it, is around the world. And what we will observe is that the countries or slower developing countries will face problems than the larger. All right? And many of those governments are putting many things in place. But before we reach to some of the solutions, some of the issues that these countries are facing, including Trinidad, and we should be labor shortages and health restrictions, transport, quarantine for congregations in the marketplace, and supply chain interruptions. So usually when we have that type of issue, we may not pay attention, but that the situation also affects poverty and the severity of poverty and the availability of food to some families. All right. In these times, the easiest, quickest solution that should be suggested to the general is subsistence farming or home, especially where how we are isolated or advised to stay home. That is one of the that we can use to ensure food at least home. So that's one of the simplest measures to treat the issue. So aspects of subsistence farming or home gardening is that it is relatively cheap to maintain and cost effective. It doesn't really require external employment labor. You don't need any specialized skills or high level of education. It provides food for the entire family, and if you manage it well, to some neighbors as well. Right? It be done in a very small space, especially now using the modern farming methods, agriculture, like hydroponic, farming, indoor farming. And the most important thing is that it doesn't require the use of foreign exchange. Yeah.
Would you say that the attention being paid to how did you describe it? It's food security and
Food production.
food production and
Food production and nutrition security.
food production and nutrition security. Would you say
Correct.
that there is a lax approach? Because I'm reading the article, you would have read it as well,
Yes.
that reference the Minister of Agriculture, Clarence Rambarad. He's saying that it's not a priority at this time. Would you say that the approach is a lax or maybe even a wrong one in terms of exactly what you said, encouraging people to grow their own products produce at home? Would you say that there is a strong enough attention being paid to this?
I don't think much attention is being paid to this problem at all. Reason being, all the other developing countries and leading countries are putting systems in place when the situation gets worse. The leading that is, when we see more deaths or horrible events happening, then we start to take on things, and that is not how we should be as a developing country. We should have things put in place some months ago, maybe years ago. I always say that there is a misconception between the education bodies, the public sector. Again, here shows the same situation, where the country now is just dependent on the very few farmers we have to supply food continuously 365 24/7. Without now in a situation where we have less resources.
2 weeks ago, we were told that we were going through a good period and the entire country was going into isolation. That has now been extended to a further 3 weeks. And we have the ministry saying we are in quarantine for a short period of time. Yet experts around the world are saying that this may go on well past May, June, July. Actually take an entire year for the country into global. And we are still talking here as if this to just be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a big period when, as of last night, the cases seem to keep up, certain what we're going to face in a week, 2 weeks time. I mean, within 2 weeks, we're already up to 78, and still that is only after testing 500 people out of 1.4 million. I'm not saying that 1.4 million people need testing, but just look at the smallest number, 20,000 who came back from across the globe in the past 2 weeks, the 50,000 who came here for who came for that we weren't aware of. Looking at what we might be facing in the next couple of weeks, it looks like we may be under lockdown for much longer than we are anticipating.
I agree with that totally, and I think the population must be, well informed, and they must kind of see the forefront of the picture. Not every 2 or 3 weeks we can renew like a contract and say, well, you gotta wait an extra more weeks until half of the year finish. So we must kind of take things a little more serious and put things in place like that now if you haven't done it before. Because you may well be home for not just 2 or 3 weeks, but months. How are you going to feed your family? How are you going to continue paying bills? How are you going to pay your loans and your debt? So these are the kind of things we need to put and take in place. Not when we realize that the forex so that we can import certain commodities like our staples. Another important food stuff. Then we now look at the stamp and try to take funds from here and there.
Noted. What would you, as an expert in agriculture, what would you suggest people grow at home, seeing as we're not really being told by the government, by the Minister of Agriculture? What would you suggest that we look at growing at home? Yes.
Okay, with regards to the vegetation side of stuff, you always make sure and have your leafy greens. Your lettuce, your pak choy, cabbage, cauliflower, and seasonings. As well as you need to have some of your short crops in terms of like your sweet peppers, tomatoes, pepper, bygone. Those are short crops that can be easily managed right from home. And a few trees, maybe 6 to 12 trees, could feed the entire family for Alright? With regard to the livestock, it is not recommended that you have livestock in residential or perform any major agricultural operation in the area, but you could have a few monogastric animals like some chickens or some rabbits. You need some protein source, even table leg layers to give it that protein source every day. You know, so those are the simple things that I could suggest that a family should have at least at home to ensure some amount of home security.
Noted. Any free to jump into the conversation with any of your questions. Any particular stickler area for you, food and us able to tell us anything you would like to ask Riyadh or at this point?
From my side, it just shows how vulnerable we are and continue to be as a nation. And, as Mr. Mohammed indicated, I mean, there are quick startups to these issues that we face in terms of agriculture in this country. We do have the land to start this initiative, but somehow we are very against it, adamant that we do not go. Right now, I think the country of Ecuador is almost 100% self-sufficient in terms of feeding themselves. Ecuador. I mean, who would think of that? But we are continue to be vulnerable as a nation, as and Anthony indicated earlier. We are now starting this journey. Suppose this can and it will continue for the greater part of the year. And the domino effect. And what are we going to do when we go into the grocery and we do not see the items that we're accustomed to? And they cannot get them here, and they are not being produced because globally there is going to be a shortage. Globally, and right now we're panic buying, but sooner or later, those same items we are panic buying will eventually run out. And what's going to happen in September and October when we are facing this? So I agree with Mr. Mohammed in taking the initiative, planting the home gardens. And making ourselves self-sufficient in whatever way possible to feed ourselves as a nation.
Yes, thank you.
Anthony, anything from you?
Yeah, I would like a morning, Riyadh. How's everything? I hope all is well on your end with you and the family.
Cool so far. I've been up since 3 doing some work.
Well, I would ask this one question. Seeing that we know that we have a government that is not proactive, has the Farmers and Farmers Association and your peers, have you guys come together yet in addressing the need of our self-security and independence where food is concerned? I mean, at least dialogue among yourselves, and having possible recommendation with your peers as to what could be the steps being taken in every instance. One of it being funded through the state, one it being funded through private, which would be 2, 3, it being funded through sweat equity in itself, because if we don't have much of an economy and money running through the system, was there any dialogue or is there to be dialogue where the farming industry is concerned with all players coming together and having this discussion? In the event, we really have to simply look as for payment, sweat equity versus an actual monetary value towards it for the survival of the country in the event of it having to come down to that. Has that discussion crossed your guys' table as of yet?
Yes, Anthony, definitely. 2 to 3 months actually. All the farmers, group and farmers, sometimes in face-to-face, sometimes over the phone, or Zoom, or WhatsApp, and we have chatted on how we're going to produce food for the country locally. However, this is own private sector initiative. It's not funded by the state or government or anybody else. And with regards to the different groups, we have like livestock sectors, we have crop sectors, we have fresh fruit sectors, agricultural sectors, we have the aquaponics and hydroponic sectors. So each group has its responsibility to continuously produce food because we can't have any delays. And I think this is, sadly to say, one of the greater opportunities for the farming community to prove to Trinidad and Tobago that they could produce much more food locally than is required. So that is the hope that us leaders in with the private sector.
Well, Rian, I have to agree with you there because I'm looking at this list and Clarence Ramrat is saying that the country must import these following things: wheat, rice, cooking, peas, beans, meats, hatching eggs, milk, and other commodities. And I'm wondering, are these things that we, or at least 2 or 3 of the things on this list, if not all these things that we can be growing and rearing here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, actually, with regard to the rice, we have many rice farmers who have shut down operations in the last because of the lack of the execution of incentive programs, broken promises, they're not getting paid on time, with regard to the subsidies and flood claims, and again, that stuff done on time, so they have been very demotivated by with regard to the different table eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have plenty table egg producers in Trinidad, which is good.
Yeah.
But the imports cramping style of the local producers. Hatching eggs, however, are really for the poultry industry, such as the broiler industry. We grow database here. So we have to get it abroad. We think we need to outsource, but a lot of the edible stuff we could produce here.
I'm with you there because if you're seeing that we have local rice farmers and we are importing rice, you have to wonder if the farmers are being deliberately frustrated because we want to import, because there are people who are making money by importing these things. There are people who are given the licenses to import these things, whereas we have local farmers here who want to and have the capabilities of doing it locally. So then the question begs, if we have the capabilities here, we have the people who are willing to do it, we have the space to do it, we have the land, why aren't we doing it? And and like you're saying, isn't now best time to test a model that's doing our own rice farming here?
Correct. Yeah, and we have so much new varieties that we could try. So much varieties that we get double, triple the amount of production in a shorter space of time with a better nutritional value. And now is the time with R&D institutions to monitor, track, and record this type of data, to publish it out, and that's how we will, how to put it, integrate all of these systems in terms of local production, scientific research, governance, man. That is how we join all of them.
Ria, I really want to thank you for joining us this evening. That have answered some of my questions as it pertains to what we do. I know you would have answered questions for the general public who are interested in growing things at home. I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago that I started a compost heap. Last week I actually started by growing my scythe. So that's the first thing that I am growing. I will have scythe to season my skin. I'm looking into, all of these things that you said, the lettuce, I definitely want to get into that because whether or not, COVID lasts a week, 2 weeks, a year,
you still need to have food at home.
Still need to have food at home. And when I look at some of the things on this list here, I'm doing this in my home garden, and I do encourage people to add a bucket where they have a land space you have. I encourage you to try something. But I'm also thinking, but I'm also thinking as a country, as a a bigger, a wider society, it would be great to see the government implement some of these plans. And I would say, to Keith Rowley and Clarence Ramrat and the rest of the cabinet and parliament, take these ideas and do it. Do it not because the Progressive Empowerment Party or Riyad Mohammed wanted to do it, but do it as it's valuable it's going to benefit the nation. It's going to benefit us in the long run, whether or not COVID comes in a week, 2 weeks, a month, or a year. We are going to benefit later down the road. And what better time to implement something new than during the time of a crisis where these things are being threatened on a global scale?
The need is there. Country comes first.
Country definitely comes first. I don't know if Anthony or Michelle have else that they would like to add to the conversation.
No problem.
Thank you, Riyadh, for joining us.
Yes.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Riyadh, we will be in touch if we need anything further. Anthony wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, Riyadh, again, I take my hat off to you and your peers and the farmer you deal with what you've tried to put into the public. I would say that I would extend myself, and I'm sure the Progressive Empowerment Party would also extend themselves, as well as any other interest seekers within the agriculture industry, to actually sit with you, with everyone, and actually have a dialogue and possibly even create a proper plan on a national level due to the situation that we're faced with and the possible future that citizens would have to now look at as a life to live. Obviously, we have to seek the interests and security of our food and how we're able to feed our nation. So I'm hoping that within the next few days or weeks, as soon as we can have a little more freer movement, where we can have a possible round table of sorts, where we can sit down and see if we can really devise a plan moving forward, at least for us to have the information in order for us to be able to make better decisions in the future.
Yes, Anthony, no problem.
Most definitely, Riyadh. And again, thank you for this. I would probably back on the program again. Like I say, we do this every month, Friday, 10 a.m. We welcome expertise. We welcome all of your ideas. And again, thank you much for joining us and the rest of Tobago and the world today. With it, you're welcome, and stay safe and stay hydrated.
Definitely, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. So, Trinidad and Tobago, you just heard from Riyadh Mohammed, who is a tropical agriculture consultant. I think he brings wealth of knowledge, and in terms of what he mentioned about food security for your own self, not doing it, encourage anybody to grow something, one thing, even if you're doing it. I'm growing scythe right now. I'm very proud. Little scythe that I will as soon as they are fully strong, but I encourage everybody to get involved in just me not being doing that at the time. You yourselves consider doing it for you and your family. It's going to benefit you, whether there's a quarantine. We have just about 35 minutes left of this program. I did mention earlier that we wanted to open the lines for you all to talk your talk. The number that you can call into is 769-4590. It's the first day of quarantine, or for some people, the beginning of their third week of quarantine. What are you doing at home? What is it like in your part of the island? And how do you plan to continue the remaining 3 weeks in quarantine period? Number 769-4590. Michelle, Anthony, and I, and the rest of Trinidad and Tobago would be happy to hear from you. I don't know, Satish, if you can put that number up so people can call in. Everything that we were discussing today. Michelle, what do you think about the next 3 weeks in terms of what do you anticipate the country to look like?
Well, I anticipate the cases going much higher. I anticipate that we probably will have to go into a state of emergency because I don't think it has hit us as a nation how critical this situation is. I think we're still a little bit lax on it. We still have people opposing, the bars. We still have people not practicing self-distancing in the groceries, in the markets. We're panic buying. So I anticipate, it getting a bit worse before it's better. I believe we can overcome it. We are seeing numbers coming out of China that their cases have basically, almost gone down to zero in terms, and they are basically limited imported cases. So I believe as a country, we need to brace and really practice. One of the things I was recommending for my students is, take this time not only to bond with the family, take this time to really, do an introspect in terms of yourselves. I've been practicing a lot of these brain games, and particularly increasing my vocabulary. So take the time to educate yourself. There's a lot of free online programs available. And at the end of the day, I mean, really utilize this time and opportunity in a constructive manner. It is to be taken serious. It is to be taken and monitored serious. We don't want to look at it, but you can't help but look at the numbers that are growing. I mean, the way it is growing, probably anticipating over 1 million cases worldwide. So just, as a nation, let's just practice self-discipline and realize and start to intellectually retrospect what this is doing to us as a country, what is going to be the long-term outlook for us as a country, and what we need to do as citizens to further educate ourselves.
Well said.
Very well said, Michelle. Someone asked me what is the number to call in. That's 769-4590. You can WhatsApp call me if you want. If you want a Wi-Fi connection, you can call over WhatsApp as well on that same number. In the next 3 weeks, like you, Michelle, I anticipate the number of cases to go up. But I also want to talk about, a post-pandemic Trinidad and Tobago. And I have to go back to that article that I was telling people about, because Anthony mentioned earlier that he's fearful, and I believe, it's a general feeling across the country, especially when you are not sure what is going to happen. 2 weeks ago, we weren't sure what was going to be the end of it or whether it was going to be extended. And we are now at the beginning of week number 3 of following, and what is to follow 3 more weeks of quarantine. And again, we still don't know what is coming after that. But we do know that this is also an election year for Trinidad and Tobago. We do know that we are due constitutionally to go through a general election. And a post-pandemic world, on top of allowing for, interconnectedness across the globe, it is also an opportunity for new and emergent political parties. And that was something that gave me hope. I don't want to leave and end this program on a feeling of heaviness and fear and worry, because there is a hope that can come out of the situation. I told somebody last week, every crisis presents an opportunity to learn, and it also presents an opportunity for hope. And I think that is an aspect of this that I would like to hone in on, because this crisis exposing the governments across the world, it's exposing their shortcomings, it's exposing proactive, reactiveness, and their ability to lead, manage, and govern. And in the response here in Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, in the first week, the candies being thrown at us as progressives, I think we're going to face and see the reality of the situation as it is. I mean, there are people who I know who are considered well off, who are safely saying a financially difficult, have been laid off, and governments pleading with businesses to be lenient is one thing is to actually be an employee or be an employer and have to face the fact that your business is not making the money that it was making in the time. It's not making the money that you would have made had there not been a pandemic, and face the fact that you as an employee, you have no business or no employer to go back to or to go to in this 3 week period. Well, for some people now, the beginning of the third week and 3 more weeks ahead, you have nothing to look forward to in terms of employment. But there is hope and hope for after this. It is exposing, like I said, these shortcomings, and it is also creating an opportunity for new and progressive ideas to come forward. It's exposing the need for um, progressive thoughts and ideas. And I mean, just an idea that they're doing right now with the judiciary and having the courts online. It's something that we have been seeing since day one. Why are we transporting prisoners to and from the jails when we can have video conferencing systems? Why haven't we built the jails next to the courthouses? And again, this situation, like I say, presents that opportunity for new and emergent ideas to come into fruition, and not just new and emergent ideas, but people who are advocating for these new and emergent ideas. And I really think that it is a time that the Progressive Impact can use to not campaign. And I want people to understand this. This is not a campaign time. This is COVID-19 is not our ticket into government, but it is an opportunity to show the world, to show Trinidad and Tobago what a progressive government can look like. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
All right.
I'm calling in from Library. I just had to call in this morning and say this was an excellent program, very informative. And I mean, I keep seeing the demonstration of the Progressive Empowerment Party. I keep seeing that everybody just keeps playing catch up. And the Progressive Empowerment Party taking the lead. Look at the level of conversation this morning. I don't understand how Clarence Ramber, I don't understand how people that we are paying excellent money on time can't figure out these simple things. Things that make sense, policies that work, plans that work, not plans that just sound nicer, but plans that actually work. What we are witnessing, as far as I can see, is a complete and utter failure of the government to manage a crisis. And what I'm seeing is sycophants coming up, trolls coming up, trying to defend this nonsense. And it is disheartening to encourage the only doing the right thing. Keep at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the day. Bye-bye.
It's calls like that that just make what we are doing and what we are trying to continue to educate the nation. I mean, calls like that just, it fills your heart because we are trying to bring change to this country. We are trying to educate the average citizen in terms of, we do deserve better as a nation. And, when this is over, as Felicia has indicated, pandemic, we need to start asking ourselves really critical questions, relevant questions of where we are going as a nation and what we deserve as citizens. We do not deserve temporary handouts. We deserve long-term outstanding governance. Not average. We deserve outstanding governance that is proactive and it takes the citizens of this country first and foremost when governing and making decisions. So, caller, thank you very much for that call. We do diligently just try to educate the population, and I do see the population is waking up.
Indeed.
Yes.
I'm seeing someone here say, take care of yourselves. Now is not the time to blame. Strongly, let me know strongly, I disagree No, it's not the time for blame, but it is the time, especially as we're in a downtime, to apply lessons learned. We are every day is the situation is changing, it is evolving, and every day we have an opportunity to take away something that we can apply to the future. I mean, at the start of the year, nobody could have anticipated that this was what the first 3 months 2020 was going to look like. We had when we celebrated and toasted for New Year's Day on New Year's. Sorry, we weren't anticipating that in 3 months we would have been locked up in our homes, unable to leave, except to go and buy groceries or except if you're an essential worker. And I think had we known and applied then a lot of what we know and are now looking to apply now, we could have not only saved money, but we could have had a more proactive than rather than reactive approach. And I'm saying this not just for Trinidad and Tobago, because I mentioned earlier that the entire world saw this coming and downplayed it. And for those countries who took fronts like Singapore, they were in operation since early February. For those that took seeing where the risk was mitigated. So no, now is not the time for blame, but it is the time to every day make note of what went well and what can be done even better. That is how you learn, that is how you progress, and that is how you lead. You can't just look and point blame, but you have to also record where you can do things better. And I think in light of what we are doing here today, I think that is a very good step. And I encourage everybody, you don't have to be in a political party, you don't have to be support government. You could support this government. Try to think outside the box, try to think past your own biases, try to think past your own loyalties and really analyze the situation from top to bottom and see where we as a nation can do better. Yeah.
Well said, well said. I just want to throw in a 2 cents here. I would tell you this. You made a point just now of the government asking businesses and so on to be lenient. And that is where either payments, loans, or salaries or what have you is concerned, whether it be rent or what have you. Now, that in itself simply shows to me that the government truly does not have a plan and they really don't know what they are doing because, as government, seeing what we are faced with on a national level, which is twofold. It is a health crisis and a economic crisis that we are actually faced with right now. We as a nation were supposed to have proper protocols and policies across board on both public and private sectors, having a direct way in which we operate in this time of crisis. Whether we have to rack up or have an accounting as to what the hit financially is for Trinidad and Tobago on both the public and private sectors, have that equated and deal with that at a later date, or have a system where we're able to write certain things off. I mean, the point is that we are truly not being proactive. At least I should stop saying we, but at the end of the day, is truly not being proactive. Not active enough to have proper foresight and having systematic plans and policies in which we, the population and business people on both the private sector as well as the public sector, in how we are able to operate in this time, presently and for the future, at least the near future. That's my issue. That's my issue, and is why I'm so much in fear, because we are into an area that we truly have no foresight as in what we are to expect.
What is standing out? I mean, if there's one thing that should stand out to the citizens of this country is the bed availability, because this has totally highlighted the downside of our healthcare system. But what is amazing is, within the past 2 weeks, we've been able to increase our bed capacity. And that alone shows what was happening before. Because this has always been
Good point.
solution. This has always been an issue in Trinidad. Beds, no beds available, no beds available. And now miraculously we have beds available. Yes,
Yeah, I
it is
think
a
300
pandemic, but
beds.
we should not have waited for a pandemic to occur. We should have beds available for our citizens throughout the year, despite a pandemic occurring. So if it's anything, one question the citizens need to ask themselves, concentrate on the healthcare. And these are lessons learned. But where are the beds miraculously appearing from? Why are we all of a sudden allocating money that should have been allocated to healthcare decades ago? We should have first world hospitals. We should not have shortage of equipment, definitely not having shortage of beds. But if there's one thing you're going to ask yourself, where were these beds before this pandemic?
Yes,
That's a really
that's a
good
great question.
question. Really great question, because I mean, isn't that, Anthony, that's what you would have experienced when your dad had to go to the hospital 2 weeks ago? There were no
Yes,
beds in the
failure.
hospital.
Total
And
failure. No beds. They told me straight up front that they weren't able to ward my father because there weren't any beds available in any wards. The emergency room in the hallway. Hear what I'm saying, eh? In the hallway were as deep as beds deep in the hallway, with people just lined off there, not having the type of care or assistance that is due to them. It's an emergency room, for crying out loud. We are talking billions of dollars being spent each year. Where is this money going? How are we not being able to get any type of benefit from that? I am a person that, I am not a nurse, I am not a doctor to say that I am able to deal with a man who has just gotten a stroke, that has lost mobility in half of his body. He cannot talk, he cannot eat for himself, and he's almost in a vegetative state. But you're telling me in less than 24 hours after him being admitted into the emergency room, having to lay in that said emergency room for over 12 hours, hear me, eh? In the hallway, before, in my mind, him getting the type, because I had to leave for a little while. When I came back, I wasn't even able to go back into the emergency room. By the time I was able to get to him, he was basically in the same position I had left him hours ago. And then now they're telling me, they're releasing him to me, where I am not a nurse, I'm not a doctor. You're telling me this man through a tube. I have to live him wherever he has to go, if he has to go to the toilet or what the case might be. He just got a stroke. I don't know whether the man is stable or if he's not. I don't have the machinery which is available in order to ensure that his stability was on par as to where he's supposed to be, as a patient, as a stroke victim. I mean, it is utter madness that took place in that emergency room. I mean, a real first-hand experience of this, of our healthcare system. It has just driven the nail directly into that coffin and sealed the deal for me. We have a failed system. We have a failed state, and we have leaders that have no idea as to what they are doing. They don't know a clue of whether their ass or their elbow is what they're standing on. They don't know. They don't know what they are doing in order to run a country. They have not the type of people that is surrounding them, giving them the proper guidance and recommendations in moving our country forward, in bringing a level of efficiency to the population, in order for us to get the biggest bang for our buck, as in what we spend versus what we actually get. The point is that we have such a large section of our economy being hemorrhaged out of the system, going into people's pockets, paying off financiers and doing all kind of, whereas it's droplets. It's a minuscule amount of that money that is actually reaching where it needs to reach in order to really help and do for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the question is, when are we going to put a stop to that? That must come to a stop, because that is where the issue is. that lies. The feeding frenzy has been going on for too long, and these said people who are calling themselves leaders, they are the ones that do not want that system to stop. They don't want the feeding frenzy to end. They want to continue. Look, they're going into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. For what? You're telling me nobody on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, no economist, nobody within that sphere of things where life and where the economy is concerned, was to devise a plan, short term, medium term, long term, in helping pacifying the economy to deal with this COVID-19 issue. And I think it was Michelle or was it Felicia that had mentioned before, us having to go into the Heritage and Stabilization, pay off back taxes. Really? That shows the level of incompetence that we have as leaders, because you're telling me how many years you are in office presently as the president administration governing our country. It's almost 5 years you are there, and you have not created a plan in bringing down our debt as a nation, in revitalizing the economy in itself, where there's some level of diversification, whether it be through shipping, whether it be through agriculture, whether it be through tourism, whether it be through local manufacturing, whether it be wherever. The problem is that nothing was done again, and we say it again, proactively. We are a reactive nation. Our leaders are reactive, and my question is, I refuse to believe these are people that do not know better. You cannot have a doctorate or a bachelor's or a master's and you simply have no hold on a level of common sense. Really and truly, that is total
Agreed,
failure for me.
100.
Really and truly,
Agreed,
this
Anthony.
must be something
Totally
deeper.
agreed.
There has to be something deeper in this, in order for them to willingly, openly, without any regard, making the missteps that they are making. And it is still okay. Something is wrong.
It's deliberate. It's deliberate
Has to be.
incompetency we practice. Deliberate incompetency. We deliberately mismanage Trinidad. It is not in the foresight now. Yeah.
Correct. It
And
is just a level of
that
madness.
you brought up again, Anthony, that comment about dipping into the HNS fund. Sorry, dipping into the HNS fund to pay taxes. And my question is, had this COVID-19 crisis not come about, where were we planning to pay these tax refunds from?
They weren't going to pay it because
Where were we?
I indicated they weren't going to pay it, Felicia. They weren't. I have from 2017. I'm still waiting on a check from 2017 taxes. And that is owed to me, and it's still outstanding. I know several people in South, 2-3 years, have not received tax refunds. So basically, the citizens need to ask themselves, this was not going to be paid. And why are we taking it out of the savings to pay citizens and acting as though it's a gift and we're concerned for the citizens of this country? You're giving back us our own money.
Exactly.
Yes, Michelle, you are absolutely correct. And I would say this, I just
giving you back
a little 2 cents here.
Money, I agree.
The point is, you are using this money to pay back taxes, going into our Heritage and Stabilization, a big chunk of that. Where's the money going to go to deal with the actual COVID-19 issue that we are with? Where's the money going to go to pacify our economy in itself, to help it float somewhat for some level of weeks or months in the future, in order for us to retool and revitalize our local system on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, in order to allow a survivability for our citizens, our small business, our medium-sized business, and even our corporate businesses? No one is sitting down talking about this.
No, and there are some people.
Lucky everybody home today, and that is it. We cock up and we relaxing.
Correct.
We on quarantine.
There are companies on the list that are owed over $10 million. And like I said, if the citizens look at this compensation list, majority of the $10 billion is going to be used to pay citizens back taxes, and companies on the list exceed $10 million outstanding in refunds. Companies per
Madness.
company, madness.
You know what I'm also not hearing as well? We're making all of these withdrawals and we're paying all of this money. I'm not hearing any plans of putting it back. So we're taking this to pay taxes from how much ever years that are overdue. Is there any
Yes.
mention or are we mentioning anywhere of the COVID-19 when we have done with this, we are going to re-inject these back into the Heritage and Civilization Fund. This is just a safe withdrawal with no or an indefinite repayment or redeposit time frame. Those are the things I'm not hearing, and those are the things that concern me, because yes, we need to deal with this crisis now, today. We need to ensure lives are saved. We need to ensure that those most vulnerable get money, etc. But what are we putting in place for them? The future generation will know when they should have invested in certain things like agriculture, security, and securing our borders. I mean, it wasn't done, but had it been done then, we would have been in a better place now. What are we doing to ensure that in 20, our kids and our grandkids are stable heritage? And what are we doing? And those are questions that people need to think about. Think out the box. Don't just think yes, we need to survive now, but we also need to survive 10, 20 years from now as well.
Yeah, they're waiting for the oil
Exactly.
price to go up.
Right.
That's what they're waiting on.
And
They're waiting on the
and
oil
still
price to
won't
go
be
up. That's why they're
deposited.
talking nothing about how to redevelop what we're gonna do to pacify anything. Not realizing we need to put emphasis now, put investment now in renewable energy, where now we can possibly even power our entire nation, private, public sector, the businesses, industries, almost free of charge to help boost and catapult our country forward. But nobody want to talk that. Nobody want to hear that. We go sit down and wait for oil price to go back up.
There was one I wanted to mention earlier, and now is a perfect time to say it. We had in the list essential service, etc. And I remember reading in that article where Clarence Ambrose said we weren't going to focus on food production and food security. He said that we need to nation that food consumption, not necessarily in terms of what we import versus what we can produce locally, but in terms of us as a nation and our consumption patterns in terms of what we eat, because we are an unhealthy nation according to him, and I don't disagree. I actually completely agree. We have high levels of cholesterol, diabetes, heart attacks, because we eat so much rubbish. When you look at the list of essential things, and despite the fact that he said we're not focusing on food production, even pointed out that we are an unhealthy nation. You have KFC that is open in all. How many restaurants do they have? 120 restaurants. We are in this time of COVID. Over 100 and yes, 140 something KFC stores. And I'm trying to understand, is he trying to contradict himself? Because you're talking about a healthier nation, yet in this crisis, chicken is widely and readily available. And I remember people on my timeline asking that question, is KFC considered essential? Because people were looking forward to that. And I'm thinking, isn't now the time you all should be eating yams and provision? Because it's the time that we should be staying the most healthy. No, I mean, I'm laughing and we're joking about it, but to me, now is the time that we should be eating less out and cooking more at home, because this is a virus that attacks people with weaker immune system. People with diabetes, they are at most risk of being impacted by this. Yet we telling them KFC open, go and eat a bucket of chicken.
Right, and we know, a KFC line is always long to begin with. So we're trying to practice social distancing, but yet we're saying these fast food places are open. I mean, since we have been in quarantine the past 2 weeks, I think I've cooked, every other day. I have not eaten out just for that fact of just going in a restaurant and possibly, subjecting myself opening myself to this virus. So I mean, citizens, we need to think. We need to start taking better care of ourselves. And you are correct. We face a lot of health issues in this country. That is, on a global scale. We lead in heart disease and many diabetes and so forth. So now is not the time to really be thinking about fast food.
Exactly.
Yep. You're right. You're right. Also, I want to just throw in a 2 cents again before we close off the show. Not only we are not a healthy people, we are also not a clean people. Our hygiene is definitely something that we have to redevelop and put proper information to the public from school level, from kindergarten level, all the way up to adulthood. Again, I keep saying it, it's a perfect opportunity for us here in Trinidad and Tobago to really remodel ourselves and the way that we live as citizens and operate in Trinidad and Tobago, create new protocols. Again, under all the negativity where this is concerned, that is, I would say, one of the key silver linings that we do have in revitalizing, rebooting Trinidad and Tobago, as we would like to say it, because the opportunity has posed itself to us where we're able to refabricate the way we conduct business, the way that we do politics, the way that we interact with each other. Just a matter of putting the proper level of information for the population to be able to make better decisions for themselves and be able to do things. That's just what it is, because again, Trinidadian who from the bush, and you put him on Caribbean in New York, Canada, or England, before he gets off of that plane, to assimilate their laws and their ways of life within that said country they are touching down in. Plain and simple. So why is it we as a nation now can't retool ourselves and retool the way we think and the way we do things, as if we ourselves was just dropped from Trinidad off of Caribbean Airlines into another man's land with their own rules and regulations that's instilled in the fabric of their society. It's simply a matter of knowing what we want as a Trinidad and Tobagonian society and forging it forward, chiseling it into stone and creating a proper environment, one that is first world, that we've been talking about for the last 57 years, that we've been forging for as a goal. We are in 2020 right now. Manning had talked about that 20 years ago. Where we are today, how much closer are we to a first world nation, or one that even works? Nowhere close. We're much further as it is. So the point is that we have to stop the way we are doing things. Period. We truly have to now identify ourselves as Trinidad and Tobagonians. Forget the lines in the sand. Who's poor, who's black, who's white, who's Indian, who has the nice car from, who have the nice shoes from, who doesn't. We have to forget this and focus on our nationality, focus who we are as a people and as a nation, and create a model that is proper, giving everybody on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, once you're a citizen, hope and opportunity. So we have no need to run into our next man land as a second-class citizen, seeking and being in search for that said hope and opportunity, when we could have it right here, right here. And that is my 2 cents.
Well said, Anthony. I'm going to take that as your closing comments because it's 10 a.m. and we need to wrap up. Michelle, any from you?
Stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago. Stay healthy. take this time, as I've indicated, self-education, read the various articles on what the world is doing, how the world is responding. It's critical in us educating ourselves as to what we deserve and what we can be as a country. I'm definitely taking the time to self-educate and stay healthy. Again, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure this morning.
Indeed. Someone just said that first world countries are struggling very hard to keep their economies alive and manage their healthcare. And that's true. If first world countries are struggling right now, what does that leave for us here in Trinidad and Tobago? And he said, like Riyadh said, all in their different ways. This crisis presents the perfect opportunity for us to learn and for us to do things differently going forward. I would like to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I think for the first day of Pep Talks in the morning that resumed, now in a new operating space, we're doing this virtually. We're each in our own homes connected online thanks to technology, thanks to Pep Media. For the first day, I think it was a really nice kickoff. Every day, Monday to Friday, this program will run 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You're going to see faces on our show like Deputy Political Leader Anthony Dufour, Michelle Davis, Deputy Party Organizer, who joined us this morning, Lima McLeod Wilkinson, our other Deputy Political Leader, and members of the Progressive Empowerment Parties, our caretakers, shadow MPs, future candidates for the general election. They're all going to join us on the program as guests, as co-hosts, because we have a lot of information to share. We have some really great critical thinking minds in the party. And I believe that now is a perfect opportunity for them to connect with you, to connect with Trinidad and Tobago, and see and hear from the talents that we have here in this organization. I would like to wish again the Shelter Baptist community happy Shelter Baptist Day, and for the rest of
Shelter
Trinidad and
Baptist,
Tobago
yes.
who did not even who did not even realize that today was a holiday, because it's also the first day of our new quarantine period. Happy holiday to you. Be safe, stay quarantined, stay away from long lines, and if you know you're going to the supermarket and you have to line up outside, maintain your quarantine distance. I will see you guys tomorrow for a fresh and new program, 8 o'clock in the morning on the dot. Bye bye.